Okay, now we're back. Sorry about that. I had this open in YouTube as well. Apparently, it created an echo. So, a little about me. I'm Kristen Milhollin. I'm the founder and project lead of goodspeaks.org. We curate cause-related video and events and distribute them. I'm also a contributor to semanticweb.com. I write about semantic publishing as well as linked open data. And thank you so much for joining me today. This Hangout's going to be available later as an edit. So if you can't catch it all now, please join me later. You can also ask questions on Twitter at hashtag SMW New Knowledge. So I'll be checking after the discussion is over to see if anybody has any questions. The knowledge graph is becoming a really it's fundamentally changing the way that content is discovered across the web and across platforms. It has to do with the underlying structure of the internet itself, and its purpose is to help us find better answers to questions. It also helps us make more connections between concepts and between data that's available on the internet in order to learn, basically in order to learn new things. Now, the foundation for the idea of the knowledge graph was laid back when World Wide Web founder Sir Tim Berners Lee announced at TED in 2009 his idea, which he had outlined years earlier, that it would be useful if the internet did more than just hold unrelated documents, if instead it began to hold more data. And you can see a picture of Tim Berners-Lee here and what he had to say about that. He said that if we start linking data together in a logical framework, and he called that kind of data linked data, then we could get really more useful information out of the internet. So he called linking data together, this idea basically is linked data, and then putting it up in a framework. That idea is known as the semantic web. And essentially the semantic web is an internet made up of linked data. It's also known as Web 3.0 for some people. If you consider that social media is kind of Web 2.0, then the semantic web, which is linking concepts together within the internet, that's kind of the next stage of evolution of the internet. Now, why did this matter to him? Because when data gets linked to other data, it becomes useful and it becomes more meaningful. And these interconnected relationships add context, and the related information becomes more powerful. The same goes with ideas and concepts, what are collectively known as entities. When they start becoming matched to other ideas and other concepts, there's potential for greater understanding and new knowledge. For example, if you think about linking open data available on the internet from the Environmental Protection Agency about, let's say, factory emissions, with data from the Center for Disease Control about, let's say, cancer rates in a given geographic area, and then imagine being able to do this instantly with very little programming or organizational effort, you begin to understand the goal of the semantic web. And to help you visualize it, we have this series of graphs here. On the left, over here, you have what's called the old web, the web of documents where ideas are organized in a hierarchy, but there's really no connection between these documents. And on the right here, you have the new web, where Google really has gone with the knowledge graph. And this is a web where ideas and concepts and topics, again, we commonly refer to these things as entities, they're represented as nodes here on this graph. And these nodes are linked together in an endless loop of relationships. Now, Google takes this new approach to information so seriously that it doesn't consider itself merely a search engine anymore. It considers itself a knowledge engine. And the search quality team has even been renamed to the knowledge team. And why is Google doing this? Well, Google's doing this because their vision is this new structure will create the computational power of the future. I mean, like that Star Trek computer that's like a beacon for so many people who work in the field of artificial intelligence. They want a computer that can ask you any question at any time, that you can ask any question at any time. It will give you the answer, and exactly the answer that you're looking for. But right now, I'm really going too far. It's right now, mostly what the knowledge graph can do is help users find what they're looking for more quickly, get the best summary on a given topic, and go deeper and broader to learn more about what they'd like to search. So for example, if you enter a flight code into a Google search box, you'll get the time that the flight's expected to land. If you enter a stock market code into a Google search box, you'll get the share price and a graph showing how it's changing. If you type showtimes into a Google search box, you'll get a list of films showing at theaters near you. Note that you won't just get a list of websites that provide this information. You'll get the information itself. So, for example, if you type the name of a book into a Google search box, you'll get something that looks like this. Now, you get this knowledge box here that's on the right of the search results, and by itself, it gives you much of the information that you might be looking for. And basically, the knowledge graph is a database of more than 500 million of most search people, topics, places, data, other sorts of things in Google. And increasingly, it's providing the answers to these search questions, not just links to the answers. It can even guess what your next questions might be based on the searches of millions of Google users all over the world. So you might wonder, how does Google know this information? Where does it get this? Data, this information? Is it all stored in one place? Well, the answer to that is kind of. It's actually stored in the knowledge graph. And the knowledge graph looks like it's a graph database, like we saw earlier, and it collects information from many sources. And those sources include the CIA World Factbook, the FDA, the National Library of Medicine, Wikipedia, Wikidata, Freebase, user searches, microformats, schema.org. Basically, the director of engineering at Google, John Giandra, said that they want to have every highly regarded data source in their database. And you'll notice that many of these sources are fairly static and privately managed. But if you consider Wikipedia, that's an open source, crowdsourced, peer-reviewed online encyclopedia with about 5 million entries. And even more importantly, there is Freebase. Freebase is a collaborative database that's built to represent relationships between things, and it's the largest of its kind in the world. Google acquired it a few years ago when it was still known as MetaWeb, and back then it had about 10 million entities, which they like to call topics. This was larger than any other linked database at the time, so Google bought it to serve as the backbone of its knowledge graph. And even though it's owned by Google, it remains open for anyone to contribute to. So it's even used by Google's competitor Bing for some of their semantic search capabilities as well. And here you have that Brave New World topic in Freebase. So do you recognize any of the information here? It's the same information that we saw in the knowledge box in Google's search engine results page. So now you know where a lot of the information comes from. It actually comes from Freebase. So if I look back here, you can see characters, copyright date, adaptations, genres, and a lot of that same information is here, characters, author, genre, and even the Wikipedia entry is available in Freebase. Now, because it's open to the public, Freebase, and by extension, the knowledge graph, it can make mistakes. A blogger reported one here in the knowledge box, if you will, about James Polk. The problem was that, I guess, when President Polk attended college, the University of North Carolina Law School didn't even exist back then. And I don't have any idea how he happened to know that, but he did. So what happens when Google's knowledge box, sorry, when the knowledge graph makes a mistake? Well, there is a feedback mechanism. You click here, it opens up a box that looks a lot like this, and you can correct that information actually directly in the box that they provide after you click report. And of course, there's a moderator, so they're going to consider carefully the new information that you provide. But you can see that it's already been corrected. This is a newer version of the box. However, the blogger himself corrected it here in Freebase, which is you click edit topic, and then you can enter in the new information. And again, there's going to be a moderator who's going to consider the information that you provide. But that's actually probably a better way to correct misinformation, and I'll tell you the reasons for that in just a bit. So again, Freebase is a collection of entities, millions of entities, which it likes to call topics. Topics could be anything. It could be the idea of stewardship. It could be love. It could be Bob Marley. It could be any movie ever made, or it could be the concept of a movie itself. You get the idea. Freebase has over 24 million topics, and it maps these topics together in a web of relationships. So where Freebase topics get interesting is when you start to use them through APIs, application programming interfaces, such as the Freebase Topic Suggest API down here. Using that, you can start typing any text you want, and it will automatically complete it with a Freebase topic suggestion. And the reason that's interesting is because Freebase topics don't only help you navigate Freebase. It's interesting because YouTube has just started categorizing videos using Freebase topics, and they're making these topics available through their new data API, which is called version 3. And that means that you can use this new data API to perform video searches using Freebase IDs instead of keywords, which, as many of you know, can be notoriously irrelevant when you're trying to locate videos. So here, you have an example of an experimental Freebase topic search that was developed by YouTube. It's called Topic Explorer, and it uses Freebase topics instead of keywords. And if you're logged into YouTube, it will even guess the topics that you might be interested in based on your browsing history and channels that you subscribe to and videos that you've starred. It's still very much in its early stages, and to be honest, I found it's not as comprehensive as it could be, and I don't know whether this means that not all YouTube videos have been given Freebase topic IDs or whether there's a problem with the Topic Explorer itself, but I would definitely expect that this will improve over time. And the big idea, of course, is that by using it, you're no longer searching for keywords or even strings of characters. Now you're searching for concepts that have actual semantic meaning. So this has essentially disambiguated some what would normally be keywords where they could have more than one meaning. Now they're saying, no, what is the exact meaning of the thing that you're looking for? So further tying this conversation to video, what does online video have to do with the knowledge graph? Well, if you consider that videos become probably the most consumed content format online, and that I guess there are more YouTube viewers now than there are Facebook members, and if you consider that YouTube search engine is the number 2 search engine on the internet, if you're somebody who creates video content, you want to be visible in YouTube search. And in the future, as this search evolves, you're gonna want to start caring about these Freebase topic IDs. You should also care about Freebase topic IDs because Google now is plugged into the knowledge graph, which means that Freebase topic IDs are a big part of the metadata Google now will start using to determine how relevant your videos are to a person who's asking any given question. Google TV itself is also using the knowledge graph, which means that in the TV environment, your metadata matters, and that means your free-based topic IDs matter. And no less important than Google's ecosystem itself are these content discovery networks that have mushroomed basically over the last couple of years. There seem to be more and more every day, and they're really modern content syndicators. What they do is they'll take the text of an article or the text that surrounds a video, and they'll process it using semantics, which generally means natural language processing, and then they extract entities. And that basically means they'll extract linked data, which in most cases includes free-based topics. And then they'll use these topics to match and group content together, or to suggest related content to content that you're viewing or reading. So here as well, when it comes to content discovery, your free-based topic IDs matter in this context. And especially in the case of Link TV, because they actually use free-based topics as a way to organize their entire site. And that's something really that anybody can start doing. They've got APIs that let you do that, available through Freebase. And the reason, again, to do that is you can more easily integrate the content on your site that you tag with free-based topics instead of, for example, free tags or your own internal taxonomy, with content on other sites that are tagged with free-based topics without having to configure lots of different APIs. So it's in a way becoming sort of a universal taxonomy, but really more like an ontology, a place where tags are linked to other tags, and you can adapt them for your own site. So as a content creator, what can you do? What can you do about making sure you've got the right freebase topic IDs on your content? Well, one thing that you should not do is assume that Google will listen to your video and automatically create a transcript that will assign the correct topics. I mean, if you do assume that, your video will probably be ignored, and assuming that automatic audio captioning is ever used by Google as a means to generate topic IDs, there would likely be a huge margin of error, as you can see in this caption of a Phineas and Ferb clip, which is clearly not about Abu Dhabi. So what would probably be a better strategy is to just really pay attention to the text that you use to support your video when you're uploading it. I mean, topic IDs may be associated with some of the suggested tags, for example, but chances are that Google places a larger priority on the text that surrounds your channel and on your video. So it's likely, I think, that Google's using natural language processing and entity extraction to analyze the text that you provide. And again, not only on your video, but on your channel as well, and particularly on your title. So one thing you can try to do is make sure that your title and your description of both your channel and your videos includes words that are similar to free-based topic IDs, keeping in mind that Google's also going to be processing the text that surrounds these words. So make sure that the words make sense in the context in which they're used. The main point is just make it easy for YouTube by giving them as much relevant text to process as you can. And I wouldn't try to game the system because they're Google, they're smart, they're likely, it will probably affect your search rankings if you try that. And in any case, when it comes to the content discovery channels and websites, they're using free-based topic IDs now. They're using the API to draw in related content to things to the content they have on their sites. But there's still going to be a human in many cases making sure that that content is really relevant, that it's reliably sourced, and it's of high quality. So of course these are going to be prerequisites for getting your video out there to new audiences. And just as an example, I uploaded a video yesterday, and I noticed here that some of the topics, the suggested tags, look suspiciously like free-based topics. So it looks like that's one way to work with them. I think that some of these are auto-generated based on the text that I provided, and so I have the choice to select them. And whenever you see like solar energy and then it's industry, or in parentheses album, something like that. They're trying to disambiguate the term. It is a good chance that that actually itself is a topic ID. But you still have to use descriptive text when you're uploading the video. They're not going to give you the suggested tags if you don't have the text that helps them decide what to suggest to you. Now, all these changes, they're not going to happen overnight. They appear to have been rolling out slowly over time, especially the alignment of free-based topics with popular tags on YouTube. But the disambiguation of the words that are used to describe content is clearly a priority. And not only for Google, but increasingly this will become a priority for everyone who uses this new data API to find content that's related to something that they have on their own site. So in closing, you should know that the Knowledge Graph database holds information about 500 million people, places, and things, and it indexes over 3.5 billion defining attributes and connections between these items. It's going to be rolled out this year all over the world in several languages, and it's only going to get bigger and exponentially so. So it's definitely going to change how quickly and effectively we discover new information, and most importantly, it will help us make more connections between this unimaginable amount of content and data available on the internet today, and it'll help us better understand the world around us. Now, you can be a part of it by contributing to Wikipedia and to Freebase. And in fact, I encourage nonprofits really to start participating more in Freebase so that there are more topics about you and the issues that you cover, and also by adding your organization's data so that others may find it more easily. And where you're able to link your content to Freebase topics as a way to start connecting to the Knowledge Graph, and as a way to connect to other sites that are using Freebase topics as well. And finally, start paying attention to the free-based topics that YouTube is assigning to your content. Also, I didn't go much into this because it's really more the social media side, but do invest some time and develop your brand in Google+, because it has been known to affect some of what appears in these little knowledge boxes on the Knowledge Graph, at least for larger brands. And since this is always changing, take time to cultivate an audience there just to cover all of your bases. So that pretty much concludes the presentation. I'm going to take a couple of minutes to answer questions at #SMWNewKnowledge. And again, if you see the link that was posted to the Hangout, you can actually click on it and join me and ask a question live, but I'm not sure we'll have any takers today. Yeah, if you want, you can also ask a question on the comments section of the website goodspeaks.org, where this is being hosted, and I'll try to get to that either today or later in the week. All right, so I see a question here. All right, it says, if one edits I'm sorry, I'm not sure what YT text is long after the original posting, will Freebase update it accordingly? Freebase is not necessarily something that self-updates. Freebase is something that other people contribute to, and you can edit your own Freebase entries over time, and of course that's considered by a moderator before those changes are accepted. Freebase isn't something that self-updates, but Freebase topics are something that is really held more by YouTube itself. YouTube. So, sorry, when you said YouTube text, I'm sure that's what you meant. So in any case, yeah, to answer your question, if you edit your YouTube text long after you post it the first time, YouTube itself might, I don't know how often they process the text, so I can't really answer whether they're going to, YouTube itself will update the topics that are assigned. So I think the best thing for you to do is to provide as much of your text up front when you upload the video for the first time. But thank you, Greg, for asking that question. I hope I was able to give you a good answer. All right, I'm going to refresh this and see if there are any more questions. Is Freebase just another Wikipedia? This is a question from Lam Nguyen. You know, that is a really good question, because actually Wikipedia is something that is, it doesn't have as much information that's linked to other information as Freebase does. And Freebase itself, it doesn't necessarily go into the long explanations that Wikipedia does, but it's more linked. Freebase actually includes Wikipedia entries within it, so it sort of contains all of Wikipedia and then some. So Wikipedia is a great place to start if you want to contribute information about a topic or an issue that's important to you or even your organization. But again, just to let you know, Freebase contains Wikipedia and then adds connections to several other topics. And Freebase, again, has this ability to use the topics through an API, whereas you really can't do that as much with Wikipedia. I think there's DBpedia, and sometimes people use that as ways to reference the content on their site. But increasingly, Freebase is being used just because it's used by YouTube and Google. Lam, I hope I answered your question. I am going to share actually some of the questions here with you live. So let's see if I can figure out how to do that. Hi. All right, let me go back to that. All right. Would Google's Knowledge Graph and Facebook, this is Gautam Chatur's question, would Google's Knowledge Graph and Facebook Open Graph be considered competitors? You know, that's a very interesting question. I mean, they're used in very different contexts. Where you have Facebook, that's more of a social context. And they're really good at helping you find the things that you like and your friends like, and pictures that are related to things that you have posted within the Facebook ecosystem. But Google's Knowledge Graph is much more expansive, and it really has more to do, I mean, it does have the element that connects to Google+, of course, so there's a social element to it, but much more